On my wedding day with Alexander Hawthorne, his stepsister Isabel threatened to jump off a building. Alexander abandoned me at the altar, still in my wedding dress, to save her. Facing the mocking eyes of the guests, I publicly announced, whoever comes up here to marry me today, I'll be their bride. 3 years later, Alexander returned to the Hawthorne mansion with Isabel. I was sitting on a leather couch, sipping gourmet soup and binge-watching TV shows. Alexander glared at my swollen belly, gritting his teeth. Whose bastard are you carrying? I took another sip of my soup and smiled lightly. Of course, it's a Hawthorne child. Alexander approached me furiously, yanking me off the couch. You slut! I left with Isabel on our wedding day and haven't been back for 3 years. How could that child possibly be mine? I found it amusing. I never said it was his, and he wasn't the only Hawthorne man. Of course, this child isn't yours. You're not worthy of being its father. Isabel, shocked, spoke up. Sophia, even though Alexander left you at the altar, he still let you keep the Hawthorne name and enjoy the family's wealth. How could you be so shameless as to get pregnant with someone else's child? I glanced at her. Isabel, you're the Hawthorne stepsister, yet you openly seduced your own brother. When it comes to shamelessness, who could compare to you two? Isabel immediately turned to Alexander with a pitiful voice. Alex, for the past 3 years, we've kept our relationship purely platonic. But she's pregnant with another man's child, making you a cuckold. Hearing the word cuckold, Alexander raised his hand and slapped me hard across the face. You whore! You get knocked up by someone else and dare to slander me and Isabel? Get out of the Hawthorne house! The pain on my cheek left me dazed for a few seconds. 3 years ago, when Alexander ran off with Isabel, leaving me alone at the altar to face everyone's mockery, I publicly asked for a husband. It was Alexander's uncle, William Hawthorne, who stepped up and married me. William was known as the Ice King in the city. Since I married him, everyone treated me with utmost respect and courtesy. Since my pregnancy, William had been pampering me, not letting even a hair on my head be harmed. If William found out Alexander had hit me today, there would definitely be bloodshed. To avoid a family tragedy and for the sake of my unborn child, I said coldly, if you leave now, I'll pretend none of this ever happened. But they didn't appreciate my offer. Isabel grabbed my hair. Alex, this bitch is just guilty. She wants to drive us out so she can use that bastard child to take over the Hawthorne fortune. Alexander cursed, you scheming witch, so that's your plan. I won't let you get away with it. I twisted away from Isabel's grip and said coldly, from the day you ran away, Grandfather Hawthorne removed you from the family. Everything in this house has nothing to do with you anymore. Isabel laughed lightly. That was just Grandfather's angry words. Alex is the only Hawthorne grandson. How could he really be removed from the family? Alexander looked smug. Grandfather always said everything in the Hawthorne family belongs to me. I placed a hand on my belly and said coldly, not anymore. The child I'm carrying is also a Hawthorne descendant. I thought I had made myself clear enough. But Alexander glared at me angrily. You bitch, you really are trying to pass off this bastard as a Hawthorne heir. I'll teach you a lesson today. He slapped me even harder, causing me to fall to the ground, clutching my stomach. Seeing their menacing expressions, fear rose in my heart. Worried they might harm the baby, I quickly said, the child I'm carrying isn't a bastard, it's... Before I could finish, Alexander shoved the bowl of gourmet soup, along with its broken pieces, into my mouth. Isabel and I have been struggling for the past 3 years, while you've been living the high life here, all because of that bastard in your belly. I'll make you eat your fill today. I choked immediately, unable to speak as the sharp ceramic pieces cut into my mouth, drawing blood. As I tried to resist, Isabel dug her sharp heel into the back of my hand. My entire hand throbbed with pain, but I couldn't even cry out. After force-feeding me the entire bowl of soup, Alexander spat on me before standing up. Isabel moved her stiletto-clad foot to my protruding belly. Terrified, I desperately grabbed her ankle, preventing her from stepping down. William was infertile, and this child was the result of 3 years of visiting specialists both domestically and abroad. Isabel's face wore a mocking smile. Sophia, you look just like a mother dog protecting her pups. How ugly. Alexander frowned at my belly. If word gets out that I've been cuckolded, how can I show my face in the city again? Isabel, crush that bastard in her belly. I shook my head frantically, spitting out the contents of my mouth along with blood, struggling to say, the child in my belly is William's. Alexander paused, then burst into laughter. Sophia, you're really terrible at lying. Everyone in the city knows my uncle avoids women and is sterile. Right now, I'm the only one who can continue the Hawthorne line. Why else do you think Grandfather was so eager for me to marry you and produce an heir? Isabel chimed in, Alex is the only Hawthorne heir. Grandfather stopped his cards to force him to come back and inherit the family business. You're ridiculous, trying to pin this on Uncle William after we exposed your lies. Alexander and Isabel had eloped for 3 years without even a phone call home. Grandfather Hawthorne was truly disappointed in him, which was why he cut off Alexander's funds and wanted to sever ties with him. But seeing them both in such an irrational state, I didn't argue to avoid provoking them further. I repeated, I'm not lying. The child really is William's. If you don't believe me, I can call William to confirm. With one hand protecting my belly, I reached for my phone on the table. If I could just contact William, he would rush over to save me and the baby. But just as I grabbed the phone, Alexander snatched it away and smashed it on the ground. Seeing the screen shatter into pieces, my heart sank. Alexander grabbed my chin and said, my uncle is unpredictable and feared by everyone in the city as the Ice King. If he finds out I can't even handle being cuckolded, he'll think I'm useless and won't pass the company to me. Sophia, isn't that why you wanted to call my uncle? I shook my head quickly. No, the baby I'm carrying is. Before I could finish, Isabel pressed her heel into my stomach. Alex, why waste words on the slut? Let's quickly get rid of the bastard in her belly and go report to Grandfather. A sharp pain shot through my abdomen, and I could feel the baby moving frantically inside. I was filled with unprecedented panic. I looked at them pleadingly. Please, spare my child. Isabel took out her phone and pointed it at me. If you kneel down and bark like a dog twice, then say you're a promiscuous bitch, I'll spare the child in your belly. At this moment, for the sake of my unborn child, I could no longer care about anything else. I turned and knelt on the ground, barked woof, woof twice, and said with a trembling voice, I'm a promiscuous bitch. Isabel bent down to look at me, a smug smile on her lips. Sophia, when I knelt before you begging you not to marry Alex, did you ever imagine this day would come? Back then, Isabel had come to me, saying she and her stepbrother were in love, asking me to break off the engagement. The marriage between the Hawthorne and Winters families was arranged by our parents, with countless business interests behind it. If I had proposed to break it off, the responsibility would have fallen on me, and the Winters family would have suffered. So I refused her request. I never expected her to hold such a grudge until today. Now, I had no energy to argue about past events. I looked at them pleadingly. Please, call an ambulance quickly. Alexander stomped on my back. Sophia, you really are a slut. You'd do anything for this bastard. I was pinned to the ground, my belly hitting the hard floor. A burning pain spread across my abdomen. You said you'd spare my child. Isabel spoke casually. I said I'd spare your child, but Alex didn't say anything. You bitch, using that bastard in your belly to scam the Hawthorne family under my name. If you think I'll let you off, dream on. Alexander kicked me hard in the abdomen. An intense pain ripped through my lower belly, and bright red blood began to flow down my legs. Feeling the baby's movements gradually cease, I was filled with despair. My eyes burned with hatred as I looked at them. Alexander, Isabel, you'll regret this. Isabel stood beside Alexander, her eyes filled with malice. Alex, this bitch still hasn't learned her lesson. Looks like she needs more punishment. Hearing this, Alexander's lips curled into a cold smile. Let's see who makes you regret. Isabel, go find a rope. Isabel immediately understood and found a rope from the living room, walking towards me. I dragged my bleeding lower body backward, my eyes full of terror. What are you going to do? But their only response was excitement on their faces. They tied my hands and feet together with the rope, then dragged me from inside the house to the outside, leaving a long trail of blood on the floor. They dragged me to the edge of the swimming pool. Alexander kicked me into the pool. With my limbs bound, I could only sink helplessly to the bottom. The pool water sealed my mouth and nose, and the agony of suffocation overwhelmed me. Just when I thought I was about to die, Alexander pulled me up by the rope. Sophia, have you learned your lesson? Will you ever dare to cuckold me again? I gasped for air, but I could feel the pain in my abdomen sinking lower and lower. I had attended prenatal classes with William before, and I knew this meant I was going into premature labor due to the trauma. Although I knew the chances of the baby surviving were slim, I didn't want to give up this last hope. I pleaded with Alexander again. I've learned my lesson. I'll never do it again. Please spare me and the baby. I'm going into labor. Please call an ambulance, I beg you. Alexander spat at me. Bitch, you're still thinking about that bastard. I see you have no remorse at all. There's no way I'm letting that bastard leave the Hawthorne house alive today. He raised his foot to kick me back into the pool. I closed my eyes in despair, my heart filled with fear of drowning. Just then, the gates of the Hawthorne mansion burst open. William rushed in, his eyes filled with urgency, and shouted, Stop.